The Plank. Presented by Jeep continues right now on ABC Action News Now.
All right, Buccaneer fans, welcome back inside the Plank. John Sabol alongside Tampa Bay Times Buccaneers beat writer Greg Auman, sitting in for our Tom Corrin. You know, we've been talking the entire show about what's going on with the Buccaneers. We just had a fantasy segment with our Matt McGuire and ABC Action News' chief meteorologist, Dennis Phillips. And you just made a comment real quick here. You were kind of surprised that Dennis knew his stuff.
I had no idea. I am very impressed. I feel like I want to listen to him more about the weather now, just knowing how much he knows about the NFL. Like I said, I had no idea going in. Very impressed by all the names he's dropping and everything.
He's not all about low pressure systems and isobars with Dennis, but great segment there. A lot of great tips too. And I got to set my fantasy team here in about 8 minutes while we're talking. But we've been talking a lot here. Who should walk the plank? It's a new segment here on the Plank, where we pick, and we want to hear some of your suggestions. We got a couple of tweets here. Jordan Mark tweeted us saying the entire offensive line, that's what Matt and Dennis just said, should walk the plank. And he also said Jaworski Lane should just walk. He should walk the plank after getting suspended. But I think there are other guys. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and reveal who we think should walk the plank. You and I were debating a lot about this, and there's so many different options. There's Lovie Smith, that was mentioned in a tweet. There's been, the quarterback play. Who else did you think that could walk the plank without giving your...
On the defensive side of things, there haven't been a lot of sacks, so you could point to somebody in the defensive line. There haven't been a lot of picks, so you could point at defensive backs as well. Obviously, a lot of long pass plays they've given up. There's no shortage of options for the plank.
And hopefully, if the Bucs get better, maybe we won't have this segment. But I like this segment. You're going to see why here. So without further ado, Greg and I think for the first time here in Week 7, the one member of the Buccaneers team should walk the plank. Do you want to give it away?
I will, and we're not keel hauling. We're just having him walk the plank.
And we're having fun with this.
I'll have a chance, yes. But looking at the way that the defense is played, I'll start with Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator, and he's somebody that has to answer for how that side of the football has to play, and he'll be the first one to say that they're not where they need to be right now.
Yes, and without further ado, let's have Leslie Frazier walk the plank. This is pretty cool. Check it out. Congratulations, but I don't know if a congratulations is in order, but Leslie Frazier, you've walked the plank. I think if he were here, you'd kind of laugh about that, too.
He didn't even get to walk the plank.
I kicked him off.
That was right.
What's some great moves, I might add.
That was enthusiastic. That was good. I have to step up my game now, just so I'm not the one on the plank next time around.
Yeah, so that was pretty good, I must say. We have a lot of other stuff to get to real quick here going in. Remember, the Buccaneers on a bye week. So we're not going to get to the keys to victory because they're not playing, but let's just go to some of the big games going on around the National Football League. Here are mine. You looked at them before. I sense, Greg, that you maybe not necessarily agreed with some of my picks here with Denver over the 49ers, Saints over the Lions, and Packers over the Panthers. What's your pick?
If I had to question one of those three, I would start with San Francisco, I think.
Okay.
I think they're, as much as any team in those six, they're better than what they've played so far. So you hate to see them taking down Peyton Manning, but I can see them. Of the three, if I had to disagree with you on one, that's where I would start.
And that's a primetime game, I believe, Sunday night at 8:30. I could see that, but I think Peyton Manning, a lot of the times, he likes to shine on those big night games. So.
Now that I've questioned it, he'll win by like 24 points.
Right, and we're going to hold you to that, Greg, so
Please.
You might have to walk the plank next week.
Right.
You know, but I think those are some of the big games going on this week that you could maybe lock down. My cold, hard locks, if I have to say that, I will. But I think that would be interesting because the Bucs aren't playing. You heard Dennis Reed, a viewer is watching from Pennsylvania, wanted to know about the Eagles. We don't typically talk about the Eagles, but they're one of the surprise teams at 5-1. Thankfully, I'm looking at the Buccaneers' schedule here, Greg, and they don't play them this year.
They're not on there.
But can Chip Kelly's offense keep that up?
Oh, no, I think so. I'm a Philadelphia native, and actually the email came from Reading, Pennsylvania, where both my parents are from. So
How
I'll
about that?
give a shout-out to Reading, Pennsylvania. I do think, we talked during the fantasy segment a little bit about the Eagles' defense being as suspect as it's been. A high-scoring defense, but a very vulnerable defense. I think that side of the Eagles is what has to step up right now. I think the offense will be there. I think they're going to be a team we're talking about well into the postseason.
We have 3 minutes left in show here before we go. I want to give you another quick little truth or fantasy questions real quick. Will the Bucs earn their second win of the year against the Vikings come up next week?
If I had to pick right now, I will say yes. I think the week off is going to help.
Truth.
I will say truth,
Okay.
yes. That's not fantasy. I will say truth. Minnesota, if you look at their last game, not many teams as bad as the Bucs were on Sunday. But Minnesota managed only 3 points in a loss to Detroit. In Teddy Bridgewater, they have a young quarterback, had 3 picks in that game. I do think he's somebody they can force into mistakes much easier than they were against the veteran guys like Breeze and Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco. I think he'll help them get their defense closer to where they want to be with takeaways and making that side of the team get better. So, no, right now, at home with an extra week to prepare, I think that's a game they can win.
A question that was brought up to me recently from a Buccaneer fan was, what's the status of Josh McCown? Granted, I don't think a lot of Buccaneer fans want him. I made a joke earlier in the show. The Bucs turnovers have gone down because he's not playing. But from what I understand, up until last week, his thumb's still not healed and he can't grip a ball. Is that correct?
No, I talked to him, I guess it was Tuesday this week, and we hadn't talked to him in a while, so you're just getting an update on where things are. I asked him specifically, are there football activities you can do with that hand? He's not there yet. So they're doing a lot of exercises, a lot of things, trying to get some strength and flexibility back into that hand. But right now he's not even able to grip a football, so that's still a long way from just getting back to practicing. I think Mike Glennon still has a few games where as long as he's playing well, as long as he has the momentum, he's had, I think, 2 touchdowns the last 3 games. If he can keep that going and get the offense just starting a little earlier, it's still probably his job to lose. And unless he's ineffective, unless the Bucs continue to lose the way they were Sunday, I think right now McCown has to wait until Glennon makes a mistake or gets hurt and lets him back in the game.
I think you're right. I mean, I think you got to stick with your success, even though it hasn't resulted in wins. Bucs, I believe, are 6-1 all time against the Vikings.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's impressive.
I was looking at that earlier today. 6-1 leads series. Oh no, since 2001, 6-1.
That's impressive.
Yeah, the last loss to a Tampa Bay team or to the Vikings looks like it happened back in 2001, September 30th.
Now that they don't have them in the same division, it's good for them. So
right.
That helps.
Right. So that will be quite the interesting storyline going to next week. We'll have a better idea of some of these injuries too next week. We'll get an injury report Thursday next week, or when the first injury report will come out Wednesday, and then a better one on Thursday.
Wednesday, better. Right now, anybody even vaguely dinged up kind of sat out. I think they had 8 or 9 guys that were held out of practice. More just rest, getting everybody healthy. Next week you'll know better. And most everybody, you probably won't see Goldson, probably won't see McCown. But I think most of the players that are hurt right now can come back and play.
All right, well, that was just about do it here inside the plank, presented by Jeep. The Buccaneers off this week, but they're back in action on October 26th next week at Ray J against the Minnesota Vikings. Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times, your Buccaneers beat writer. Greg, thanks so much for stopping in.
Hey, glad to.
He's sitting in for Tom Korn. Tom will be back next week, and we have a lot more to talk about once the Buccaneers and the Vikings game gets closer. Maybe some more storylines to pop up, some of those injuries that you mentioned, and, of course, a lot more fantasy questions next week for our Matt McGuire. So thank you so much for watching here on The Plank on ABCActionNews.com. For Greg Auman, I'm John Sabol. We'll see you guys here next week on The Plank, presented by Jeep.